To me, one of the real definitions of insanity is continuing to do the same thing time after time after time, getting the same result time after time after time, then wondering why you're doing the same exact thing every time, gives you the same result every time, and why it's never any different. So you decide to continue to do the same thing over and over and over again. It's a never-ending vicious cycle. When I think about professional sports organizations that perfectly fit into that mold of just pure insanity on so many different levels, especially from that standpoint, you have to look at the Cleveland Browns. I mean, this is a team that time after time after time makes the same dumb decisions time after time after time. They get the same bad results, yet time after time after time, they will continue to repeat those same decisions, those same mistakes, expecting to affect any real type of positive change, and all the while the results stay the same, and they're still wondering what the hell's going on. That's their fan base, that's the organization. What the F? I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. The Cleveland Browns are one of the worst-run modern pro sports franchises in North American professional sports, period. They are the creme de la creme. They are as bad as just about anybody. I mean, they really, truly are. And just recent examples of that. Like in 2012, they sit there and they draft Brandon Weeden. You know, it's bad enough, I guess, you're taking a 29-year-old quarterback when guys like Russell Wilson are still on the board. And yeah, I was wrong on Brandon Weeden too. But at least I know this is that if I'm going to draft a quarterback in round number 1, I'm at least going to give him a couple of years to show me what he could do. I'm not going to consistently try to undercut him by playing a veteran. Similar to what they did with Brady Quinn when they took him back in 2007 because they fell in love with freaking Derek Anderson and wouldn't give Brady Quinn a chance to show what he could or could not do. Part of the reason Brady Quinn busted out for the Cleveland Browns is because they never really got behind him and they never gave him a freaking chance. The same thing that happened with Brandon Weeden. They never really got behind him. They never really gave him a chance. And my question to this organization is, why would you continue to do this dumb shit, take quarterbacks like this late in round 1, just to sit there and not buy into them, not believe in them, and never really give them a chance, and then be surprised why a couple of years later you're doing the exact same thing all over again, getting the exact same result, just so that way in the 2014 freaking draft, instead of sitting there and taking Odell Beckham Jr., who was a far superior prospect to the fuckhole you took in Justin Gilbert because you're the Cleveland Browns, and instead of taking a dynamic playmaking wide receiver, you decide, in a great wide receiver class, you decide you want to have an overrated freaking corner. Then you follow that up with your second pick in round number 1, and instead of following the research and the advice you got from the analytics study that you spent $100,000 on that told you that Teddy Bridgewater was going to be the best quarterback in this class, or at least had the most traits that made him the most likely to be a franchise quarterback, you decided to take Johnny fucking Manziel any damn ways. That's a Cleveland Browns thing through and through, tried and true. Back again. Third straight time in the past 8 years that they've done this shit. Take another player high, take a quarterback late in round 1. Joe Thomas, Brady Quinn. How'd that work out with Brady Quinn? Then you come back with Trent Richardson. Oh, that was a good one. We were all wrong on him. And Brandon Weeden, and oh, God, we know how that worked out. Now, 2 years after 2012, where you did with Richardson with Weeden, two guys that are no longer with the organization, of course, because you're the Cleveland Browns, then you follow that up by taking Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel. And you're repeating the same shit again. It's unbelievable. But what's even more unbelievable to me is not repeating the same pathetically predictable pattern of failure that the Browns organization has exhibited several times now. This is a trend, this is a pattern, and yet they still continue to do it like it's going to affect any real change and give you any type of different outcome, is that they haven't even learned from the mistake of what they've done with young quarterbacks in the past, and they haven't even got behind Johnny Manziel, and they never really given him a chance. Look, I'll admit, as a rookie, he came into the league ill-prepared, ill-equipped. He wasn't mentally ready. He wasn't prepared to be a professional. He had other issues clearly off the field. It seems like somewhat he tried to address them in the offseason. He's coming into camp, and outside of this little thing he had with this lady during the course of the season, you know, it seems like Johnny Manziel, at least somewhat, for Johnny Manziel's standpoint, at least has his head on straight. But you look at this fucking Browns organization. You have taken Johnny Football with the 22nd overall pick in the 2014 draft. 2 years after you had taken Brandon Weeden with the 22nd overall pick in the 2012 NFL draft. 5 years after you had taken Brady Quinn with the 22nd overall pick in the 2007 NFL draft. You would think, as an organization, you would sit there and say, this is where this organization went wrong with Brady Quinn. This is where this organization went wrong with Brandon Whedon. So let's do things differently with Johnny Manziel and set him up in a potential situation to succeed that could help lift the entire profile of this organization long term. No, ding dong, you're wrong. Instead, the dumb dicks running the Browns decide to do the exact fucking same shit again. In 2014, they trot out Brian Hoyer as the freaking starting quarterback. And look where he's at now. He's sitting there playing in freaking Houston. And what did that accomplish for the Cleveland Browns? A bunch of false hopes and unrealistic expectations that this team was a whole lot better than they really freaking were. You got a mostly mediocre season out of Brian Hoyer, and all the while, Johnny Manziel is sitting and rotting on the freaking bench. And then when you finally do go to him, it's like the head coach, Mike Pettin, and the coaching staff doesn't buy in him, doesn't believe in him, and they're throwing him out there to the Wolves, and they want him to look bad. It's like they want him to fucking fail. I've never seen an organization that has such a disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff to the point where somehow, some way, this quarterback gets drafted, yet the head coach and the coaching staff doesn't buy into the guy, doesn't believe in him, yet trots him out there and throws him to the Wolves and wants them to fail because they want to prove a point, to the point where it gets them fucking fired. It's what happened with the Brandon Whedon situation, what's happened with the Brady Quinn situation is happening again with the Johnny Manziel situation. Why in the hell would you draft a young quarterback if everybody isn't on board with it? And furthermore, once you do draft that young quarterback, why would you not do everything possible to justify your selection of that quarterback in round one? Try to prove yourself right for once, instead of always doing what the Browns do, which is usually prove themselves fucking wrong. Why not try to set them up in a good position to succeed? Just wouldn't be the Cleveland Browns if they didn't fuck it up. 2 straight drafts. They don't really effectively address the wide receiver position. Why, oh why, would a young quarterback want to have an Odell Beckham Jr. to fucking throw to? Who knows? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Because this season, the Cleveland Browns have Josh McCown fever. You know, I get from an organizational standpoint that just because you draft a guy in the first round, it doesn't mean that it's always right to start him immediately. I get that. I look back at the San Diego Chargers in 2004 and 2005. Yes, they had just acquired Phillip Rivers in that draft day trade with the New York Giants. But they also had Drew Brees. And at that particular point in time, while Drew Brees was a former second-round pick in 2001, they felt that Drew Brees, and understandably so, gave them a better chance to win at that moment. What happened? Rivers largely sat for 2 years. Brees had 2 pretty good years. Then it was time to move on. Of course, instead of trading away Drew Brees and getting something for him, the Chargers and A.J. Smith, because he was stupid, just let Drew Brees walk away for nothing. In comes Phillip Rivers, and there you go. And he's still the man in San Diego a decade later. You know, it doesn't always mean that the young quarterback has to play immediately. But then you look at situations like last year in Jacksonville with Chad Henne and Blake Bortles. Part of the whole reason that you were in a position with the 3rd overall pick as an organization to be able to take Blake Bortles to begin with was because Blaine Gabbert and then also Chad Henne had largely failed as a starting quarterback. They helped put you in that spot. Part of the reason you were drafting this guy was because of the failures of that guy who was still on your roster, yet the Gus Bradley and Jaguars organization were stupid enough to think that Chad Henne gave them so much of a better chance to win that they decided to start off Henne in the season and set back Blake Bortles' development by a couple of games. Why would you do that? That makes absolutely no sense. I mean, you look at the Cleveland Browns situation here. You could maybe have argued when the season began that it's okay to start Josh McCown because he does give you a better chance to win. And I won't fully disagree with that. But you have lost that point now. There is no more argument to be made. The Cleveland Browns are 2-7. If the season ended today, they would have the third overall motherfucking pick in the 2016 NFL Draft. Your whole argument about Josh McCown being a guy that gives you a better chance to win goes out the window. You have won 2 freaking games, and mind you, one of those 2 wins came against the Tennessee Titans when, Johnny Football was the freaking starting quarterback. In his 2 starts this year, Johnny Manziel is 1-1. In his 7 starts this year, Josh McCown, well, he's had some games, he's put up some good fantasy numbers for whatever that's worth. He's 1-6. And yet the Cleveland Browns and dumb dick coach Mike Pettin still continue to insist that Josh McCown is their guy, and he has earned it. In what fucking way? Because he's older? Because you want to intentionally sabotage Johnny Football? Because you want to prove yourself right more than doing the right thing? Because you want to set this organization back several more years? Because you know your sorry ass is going to get fired any fucking ways along with the general manager, and it's going to be the same cycle, a new coach and general manager 2 years after they were hired to fucking begin with, just like it always is with this organization. God damn it. I like Josh McCown, but Jesus Christ, he is 1-6 as a starter. Johnny Football is 1-1. You cannot effectively argue to me at this point in time that Josh McCown really gives you that much better chance to win because ding dong, dumb dicks, if you're the Cleveland Browns, you're not winning a lot of fucking games this year anyways. You have very little running game. You have this offensive line that you've invested a ton in and they're okay. You have nothing outside of Travis Benjamin and Gary Barnidge in the passing game whatsoever. Your defense gets shredded on the ground consistently. And your secondary is doo-doo too, by the way. Why not find out what the fuck you have in Johnny Football? Because if you continue to start off with Josh McCown the rest of this season, all you've done is basically bury Johnny Manziel and you've ruined him for fucking ever. For no real reason. You head into next year's draft with a top 5 pick, and then you're drafting a quarterback again, and you're starting the process all over again, just so that way you can sabotage that next young quarterback, just like you sabotaged Manziel before he's even really gotten a fucking opportunity. Manziel's had 2 starts this year. 2! And this is year 2! He played more last year as a rookie than he's playing fucking this year. That makes absolutely no damn sense. And it's like Mike Pettin uses the Cincinnati Bengals defense as an excuse to justify not continuing to play Johnny Football. Because Johnny Football goes out there and plays so-so against the Bengals, who are a really good fucking team, mind you, that are now 8-0 this season, have made the playoffs 4 straight years, and damn near can make the Super Bowl this year. Because Josh McCown was going to do so much better against him, right? Again, Josh McCown is 1-6 as a fucking starter. And furthermore, what's even more ridiculous about this is you hear the comments after the game. You see at times where Johnny Football has improvised and gotten on the move. He can make some plays happen. But of course, Mike Pettin and the Cleveland Browns want to make Johnny Manziel a 5', 10.5-inch stationary pocket passing quarterback. Because they would rather be right and prove somebody else wrong than doing the right thing and doing the best thing possible for the young quarterback, putting him in the most ideal possible situations to succeed, to ultimately find out what this asshole has or doesn't have. At this point in time, there is no more reasoning, no more excuses for starting Josh McCown. Johnny Manziel has to be the starter and must be the starter and should be the starter for the rest of 2015. You've seen just as many glimpses out of him in his limited action this year than you have out of Josh McCown all year. You're not winning a bunch of games. You got to find out if Manziel's going to be that guy long term. And this is part of the reason why coaches shouldn't be general managers for the most part. Because they're too worried about their own fucking job security, and their job security is multiply measured on the field in wins and losses. These are the type of coaches that when they become so worried about that, they don't see the bigger picture, the long-term vision. They end up ruining young quarterbacks like the Browns have done with Brady Quinn and Brandon Weeden and are doing now with Johnny Manziel. And they ultimately end up getting fired any fucking ways. Ray Farmer, whoever the hell needs to in that Browns organization, they need to overrule the head coach. And if he's not down with that, he ain't doing shit for you anyways, brother. Fucking fire his sorry ass because you'll be seeing him on the unemployment line soon anyways. At least you could have some type of get over on him and you could be the one to fucking axe somebody first. If he doesn't want to play Johnny Football, then you hire somebody that fucking does want to play him. Because you're going to be in a position, if you're the Cleveland Browns, to draft very high next year. If you don't play him at all. And at that point in time, what do? Take another quarterback, and then you've got all this turmoil, and you've got all these questions about this and that, and then you're debating between the young guy and the other young guy in Johnny Football that you never got behind to fucking begin with, meaning why the hell did you take him to begin with? Or shit, maybe Johnny Football does play, and he stinks up the joint the rest of the year, then it leaves you no doubt, and there's nothing to think about. You go get a quarterback in the next draft, you start all over with the new general manager and a competent head coach. Or even better, maybe Johnny Football gives you a spark. You win a couple of games at the end of the year. He shows you something, and you could start to maybe actually try to put him in a situation to see to actually bothering to try and actually build around a young quarterback for once, which is what good organizations actually fucking do, which is exactly the opposite of what the Cleveland Browns actually fucking do. This is ridiculous. Johnny Manziel not starting because Josh McCown has to be the guy for Mike Pettin. I hope his ass is showing the unemployment line sooner rather than later. McCown is 1-6 as a fucking starter, you jackass. Whatever the fuck he is. A big-time losing record. Why not play Johnny Football? Why not let him be what he is? What made him successful at Texas A&M? Fuck it. Give it a shot. What's the worst that's going to happen? You going to lose games? Or you're losing them any fucking ways. Johnny Football should be starting the rest of the year for the Browns, and shame on him that he fucking isn't. What a joke of an organization.